My comment on the topic is, after working on this for a long time, a very precise one. So I should comment on, so to say, the two sides of psychiatry with respect to medicine and justice. And we have a very long discussion about and all the conflicts you are dealing with, and we are challenged in Western Europe, are concentrated on this two sides of one medal. So this is not new. So my comment today, and this may stimulate your discussion, is to draw an hypothesis. Where does the conflict come from? And let me explain this idea, which is also a research project in my group for many years. Let me explain the idea of this project in some words. We have psychiatry as part of medicine in the sciences situated. That means we are based on evidence. The communication of psychiatric symptoms, however, is related to social sciences. That means to notions, not even to psychology, just to language. And this is the crucial problem. The communication of the evidence of psychiatry as a natural science is incomplete and is, for the moment and maybe for further times, the reason for misunderstanding and a big challenge to our faculties. The further step behind that is that psychiatry, if it is in discussion with justice, is almost related to diagnosis. But the problem is that we can't decide about the free will and everything justice is interested in by psychiatric diagnosis, because the diagnoses are based on notions and so far on language, which is not precise. For example, delusion. For example, the notion of schizophrenia. For example, the notion of dementia or of depression. You all know from your own practice, by this diagnosis, you can't decide about the free will. So my suggestion is that we skip from diagnosis to precise dysfunction. That means we go back to the evidence of dysfunction irrespective of diagnosis. And this may be a trend in the international psychiatric sciences, but it is not yet discussed in detail in collaboration with your faculty, that means with justice and judges. So this is my comment. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Dobar den. Nice to see you. Nice to see many of you again. I remember good time in Dresden and Pirna, and I also remember great time in Bulgaria in 2018. I visited Sofia, Lukowit, Pernik during a judges exchange by European Training Network. And I'm a little bit sad that I can't travel to Bulgaria for the moment, because I have an invitation to the court in Baltic, but because of COVID, it's not possible. But I'm happy to see you in this way. It's better than nothing. So Nadia sent me a list with questions you were interested in. I will tell you something I think that could be interesting for you, but interrupt me and at any time. I always can change if you want. Huh? Nadia wrote me that you were interested in the change in the reform of German guardianship law of 1992. In 1992, I was a student, and I don't remember this time because I learned the new law. But I know that the problem till 1992 was for Germany that we handled adult persons like children. We had words in the law like incapacitation, and incapacitation was a problem because it's a very huge intervention, and the Parliament in this year's thought it was necessary to change that. It was not convenient to the Constitution to handle adult people even if they are disabled like children. So the next problem was that till 1992 we had a principle like all or nothing. On the, we had people who were sick, they were they became incapacitated, and there was a guardian for everything. And in most cases, they were at the same time no longer capable. What is the right word? Sorry for my English. I have no practice since you visit in Germany.
Capability is okay.
Yeah, and we had a guardian for everything. If there was someone incapacitated, he became a guardian and he was like a child. And the opinion of the Parliament was that had to be changed. And the new law after 1992 found a new kind of guardian. It was not a guardian who was it was a guardian who became the representative of the concerned person, but at the same time the concerned person could could keep his capability. That was new. And also the decision by the Parliament was that the guardian was not responsible for everything. The lawyer, the judge had to find out in what special areas the concerned person needed help. So we had also new was that we had what is the word? Special topics for that the guardian was responsible. Next idea from 1992 was that in the middle was the will of the person. The guardian was always obliged to keep in mind the will of the person, not to decide what is the objective best for the person. It was always important to find out the will. And we implemented in the law and the difference between the free will and the natural will. That is something that Professor Schönknecht said a few minutes before, that we always ask the psychiatrists, is there someone who is mentally ill? Does he have a free will or does he just have a natural will? When the will is free, we are not able to make any intervention in his rights. When the will is natural, then it's a kind of sick will, and then it is possible to make a decision also against this will. And for me, it was quite interesting that Professor Schönknecht said it's also for the psychiatrist, it's not so easy to answer to our special law words. And in the cases where people don't want to have a guardian, it's very important to find out if this decision is made by a free will or by a natural will. So that, I think, was the most important concerning the guardians. Next problem, it's not easy to say it in English, because in Germany we have at least 3 words for guardian. We have a guardian for minor children, that is the Vormund or the Pfleger. We have the guardian for the adults, it's the Betreuer. And this kind of guardian Betreuer was new since 1992. Until 1992, the guardian, also for adults, was the same like for children, the Vormund. Next important regulation since 1992 was to give people the possibility to make special powers of attorneys, to give the chance to people in times when they are young and healthy to decide who should take decisions for them when later they became sick or became dement or something else. And we call it Vorsorgevollmacht, it's the German word, and it's a special kind of power of attorney regulated by the law. And the idea of the law is that everyone should have the chance to decide on himself who should be his representative in worse times when they become sick. And I think many people have this kind of power of attorney. You can go to a notary. You can also make it in a private way. And if you have such a power of attorney, there is very low intervention by the state. For example, guardian is controlled by the court. He has to give special documents every year, a special report about that, what he did during the guardianship. He has to make a bill about everything, what he did with the money of the concerned person. When there is someone who handles by a power of attorney, there is no control by the court. So it's a private decision and the state does not interrupt in this situation. What we still have, even if there's a power of attorney, that very serious decisions have to be authorized by the court. That is, for example, when there is a very risky treatment, when a guardian or someone who has the power of attorney want to decide that there's a risky treatment should be done for the concerned person, then the court has to authorize this decision. It's the same when there should be a treatment by force, or also if an apartment lease should be terminated, or some financial decisions. Then are special proceedings where the guardian, also like the authorized representative, has to ask the court if he may to take this decision. Okay, that's about the change of 1992. Then I would like to tell you a few things about our guardianship proceedings. In my opinion, the idea of our proceeding law in guardianship cases is that there should be a narrow cooperation of several professions. We need the psychiatrists, we need the social workers, we sometimes need lawyers, and we need the judges. In my opinion, normally there are many judges in this conference, I think, so very often in our job, the judge feels like the most important person of the proceedings. And sometimes maybe it's true if you have penalty cases, for example. But I am convinced after nearly 5 years experience as a guardianship judge, we don't really take decisions on our own in guardianship cases. In my opinion, we are more moderators. We take care that the proceedings are correct. We take care that all documents for a guardianship are in the file. But at the end, for the decision, the highest responsibility is at the medicines who take the diagnostics and at the place of the social workers who find out if the concerned person really needs help. So if I have a psychiatrist who gives me diagnostics and makes and writes it in a several pages expert opinion, I'm sure that I don't know more than this psychiatrist. So the main decision is taken by him. And when there is a social worker who writes me a report, and I can read in this report what things the concerned person is not able to do, then I'm also not the person who knows more about that. I put together these two documents, make a hearing with the concerned person, and take my decision. So in my opinion, once again, it's not a typical judge's job, it's more a job of moderator. And I say this even if I know that many German judges would not agree to that what I say at this place. So that's my opinion. The requirements of our proceedings are very simple. We always need for a guardianship decision a medical confirmation or a medical expert opinion. That's the first. The second is we need a social report by the guardianship authority. Mrs. Katharina Zodehogan is in this conference and she is the leader of the Dresden Guardianship Authority. She will tell you more about her job. And when we have these documents, we have always to make a hearing, a personal hearing. There is no decision without a personal hearing between the judge and the concerned person. In some special cases, we also have a special proceedings guardian. That's also a guardian, maybe the fourth or fifth kind of guardian in German language, that is appointed judge just for the proceedings and who take care about the rights of the concerned person. And these proceedings guardians are often lawyers who make this job. So I would like to tell you a little bit more about the hearing, because there is no special there is special regulation about the hearing. First, in the law is written that the hearing should take place in the used familiar environment of the concerned person. That means that when we make a hearing for someone who should have a guardian, we should go to his house to visit him in his living room and to have an impression about the whole circumstances. And the conflict, in my opinion, is that nobody wants to have a judge in his house. Nobody wants to go to the court, and nobody wants to have the judge in his house. That's the reason why I think we can't make the guardianship hearings like normal hearings. So in my opinion, if we go to the house of the concerned person, or if we make the hearing in the court, we should organize a special atmosphere. This atmosphere should be not very official. There should be a chance of confidence between judge and concerned person. I always was wearing casual clothes. At no time a suit or a special robe for a judge, and the atmosphere should be, in my opinion, quite friendly, because I'm not interested that this concerned person has too much respect from me. He should see that even if I am the judge, there is someone who wants to help me. And that always was my aim in the special hearing for guardianship cases. In the court, during my time in the court of Dresden, we had a special hearing room, and this room was like a living room. There was paintings on the wall and flowers in the room. and there was not a big distance between the judge. It was a normal table with 4 chairs, and we sat together and spoke about the situation. And for me, it was a quite good experience. But also at this place, I have to say that it was my kind to deal with these cases. There could be differences to other German judges. Nadia also asked about trainings and special education of judges. We have, generally, we have for German judges a very good training system. We are a federal country, and most judges are federal judges. So I'm not a judge of the German Federal Republic. I'm a judge of the state of Saxony of Germany. But we have a cooperation between all states and a central judge academy with 2 places. Very nice places, one on a lake in a little castle. So the atmosphere is a little bit like holiday, but you always can learn there a lot of things. And in this judge academy, there are also special trainings for guardianship judges, but only twice a year. So I don't think that guardianship judges should have a very special education. I think the most important is that a guardianship judge is able to network. When he has this job as a guardianship judge, he should try to have a good relationship to medicines, to social workers, and all people are working in this area. And it's important for the judges to learn more about the other professions. Also for the other professions, it's important to learn more about the law. And when you can collaborate good in your district, I think it's the best training for the judge. So, next question was, should I stop, Nadia? I have I have some more I could tell you. But
you have a long list of questions, but maybe Nelly, we can ask from the audience some. I have a question I can ask. Сега съм объркана дали на български и на английски. На английски ще задам въпрос, ще става по-бързо, пък не знам, може би ще чувате в превод. I will ask you in English. You mentioned about the free will and the natural will. There is one very interesting decision of the Constitutional Court of Germany from 2016. And it stipulated there that only in certain conditions you can have a judgment against the so-called free will. Can you share with us what are those special conditions when, for example, a judge can take a decision to intervene against the free will?
Oh, this question was not on your list. So I'm not prepared to it. I have to tell you, I've been dealing with family cases for 1.5 years now, and my time as a guardianship judge stopped in 2018. So it's not my main profession at this moment, and I have to admit that I don't know this decision for the moment. But it's difficult for me to think about how to make a decision against the free will. In the center of all cases where people don't want a treatment, where people don't want a guardian, we have to find out if the will is free or not free. And as far as I know, in all cases where the will is free, we can't decide against the concerned people. So everybody, the practical example for me are people who have good school education, started studies, I know special peoples. I think Mr. Hupfer and Mrs. Isaac know whom I mean, who live with old clothes under bridges, sleep under bridges, and but they have a free will and decide they want no guardian and they want no treatment in the mental hospital, and we have to accept this. So maybe someone can help me concerning this decision from 2016, but I don't really know what the Constitutional Court means.
Сложни въпроси му поставяме на Алекс. Темата за свободната воля е тема на цялостната ни дискусия днес. Съдия Цариградски има въпрос.
Алекс, част от нещата, които разказа, имах възможността да видя на живо, за което съм и много благодарна. Но ще ми бъде полезно малко по-подробно да разкажеш, за да могат и всички останали участници да чуят за тези мрежи, които съдиите могат да изграждат с другите професионалисти, с психиатрите, с социалните работници. Как протичат, какви неща обсъждате? Аз видях на живо колко са близки вашите отношения и смяташ ли, че ако ти не осъществяваш такъв интензивен контакт, би могъл да бъдеш по същия начин полезен с крайните си решения?
Yes, of course, I think so. I always think that professional contacts are important for the work. For the moment, as I told you, I'm a family judge and I also have professional contacts, and I could not imagine to work without these contacts. But especially in guardianship cases, they are so important because the knowledge of the judge is very low. Mental diseases are nothing. We have as a judge, I don't really know about anything about these kind of diseases. That's the one thing. And the other thing is I don't really know what happens outside, what needs have these people in their daily work. So I always need medicines and I always need social workers who can tell me how is it possible to help these people. Our networking in Dresden has, I think, two parts. There is a more formal part of network and a more casual part of networks. Katharina Zodehogan will tell you possibly about the law that about the guardianship authority. There's a special law, and then this law is codified that there should be a local cooperation twice a year. So there is an official meeting between judges, between Rechtspfleger, between the social workers of the guardianship authority and medicines twice a year, where we talk about common problems in our job. This is one example. Then we had a more casual meeting in the evening in a restaurant where we met representatives of the guardians. So we had meetings for dinner and we sat on several tables, and every table had a special topic we were talking about in a very casual atmosphere during dinner and drinking beer or wine or juice. And then there's a third part, very casual. Before COVID-19, we had meeting, I think, fourth a year in the office of Mr. Hupfer, and we played table tennis. So this is very casual and not really in this place cooperation, but of course when you play table tennis you talk about your profession and you learn more in a very uncomplicated way.
Благодаря, Алекс. Колегата Андрей Георгиев каза, че има въпрос ще моля въпросите да се задават на български ясно и по-бавно, за да успяват преводачите. Междувременно искам да кажа, че в нашата среща, освен юристи, съдии, адвокати, участват социални работници, участват представители на неправителствени организации, психолози, хора, които взимат участие като специалисти по тълкуване на волята на хора с този вид увреждания. Така че всякакъв вид професии, които имат отношение към този твърде сложен проблем, за който не са достатъчно нито само психиатри, нито само юристи, са се включили в днешната ни среща. Колега Георгиев, Андрей, въпроса? За да си включиш микрофона.
Ако искате, мога да съдействам, тъй като колегата го написа в чата. Въпросът е какво се прави с хора, при които не можем със сигурност да установим воля. Хора с силни прояви на ментални дефицити, при които съзнанието не е достатъчно развито. Цитирам въпроса на господин Георгиев. И се има предвид, когато се налагат активни действия, не да бъдат спрени определени действия на лицето, ако това има значение за отговора.
Например, къде да живее лицето, да избере къде да живее. Дали иска да живее в къщи или в специално заведение, лечебно заведение или такова специално заведение за хора с увреждания.
As I understand, the question is what I will do if I'm not sure if the will is free or not. So yeah. I have to say in the doubt, the will is free. I have to prove, I have to be convinced that the will is not free in order to be able to decide against the expressed will of this person. No chance. It's the same if such a person takes part, for example, in civil proceedings. This person wants to put a motion to and wants money from another one, from the civil judge. I also have to ask if this person is able to take part in this proceedings on its own. And when I'm not convinced that the will is not free, I have to handle with the situation as the will was free.
Всъщност, въпросът на колегата е, който много български съдии се сблъскват, когато човекът е до такава степен умствено увреден или не може, или му е тежко психическото заболяване, така че той не може да изрази воля, в смисъл, той не може да говори. Не може да каже къде му харесва повече, дали в къщи или в някакъв социален дом. Тогава се ползват, разбира се, помощта на други специалисти, които по някакъв начин да извлекат елементарната воля. Може би след обяд ще говорим и с нашите експерти в тая насока, но как се действа, като си представим един човек, който не може да говори, сериозно умствено увреден и не може да изразява мислите си и волята си.
I have several experience where I was very impressed how these people are able to express their will. I remember a young man who was not able to speak and who had a special computer, and he could express, himself tapping on special fields on the computer. And I understood a little bit, and afterwards I asked him if I understood well, and he confirmed. And when this is the reason why we have to do our hearings in any case. And after the hearing, I had the impression that he told me what he was thinking about. And there are, I don't remember another case for the moment, but even if you are not able to speak, you are able to communicate. And it depends. There are a lot of cases we deal with in this area. And I think when you can communicate with such a person, in the most cases, this person will agree. Especially this man was 18 years old. Until he was 18, his parents were his representatives by law. Sorry. And after 18, this representative by law was finished, so he needed a guardian. And I could see in the house, I visited him at home, that he had a great little room in the house. There was a good relationship to his mother, and the house was built in a special way that he was able, with his rolling chair, to change the floors. And the atmosphere, the impression was very positive. He seemed to be happy, this man. And to my questions, he said, of course, I want that my parents go on to be my representatives. And he couldn't say this, but he could express this. And I was convinced that this was his free will.
I told you that I'm Anti Исаак, an employee of the Erste Dresdner Betreuungsverein. This is Stefan Hupfer. He's the manager of our organization. We are one of two Betreuungsvereine in Dresden, and Betreuungsverein is a non-profit organization. The purpose of Betreuungsvereine is to support and coordinate the work of volunteers who became legal guardians for family members, friends, or even strangers. The Betreuungsvereine are financed by the state. We are not dependent on donations to do our work for our clients and to support the volunteers. To be able for our work with volunteers, it is necessary that we, the employees of the Verein, are also working as professional legal guardians to ensure that we have the practical experience to guide the volunteers. So I'm working as a legal guardian for adults as well. We are here more than 10 colleagues, so we can share our problems and can discuss difficult issues together. This kind of supervision is really important for the work as legal guardian. And we have very different professional backgrounds here. So we have social workers, lawyers, I'm a psychologist, we have educationalists, and even two socialists. In the next minutes, I will try to point out the role of the Betreuungsvereine and the persons who work as legal guardians for adults, voluntarily or professional. The duties for volunteers and professional guardians are quite the same, and we are monitored by the courts and the judges. There might be a problem with the translation of very important terms. That's what you already said, Nelly. Because, and what Alexander Klerch even told us, there are 3 words for guardian in German. So I try to make my point clear, but if you have any questions, just ask, please. And I will use the German word for Betreuer sometimes because it's kind of the best. And fine. Yeah?
Искам да помогна. Betreuungsverein, което се употребява, това е обединение на подкрепещите. Може би, Антия, кажи ги думите на немски и ще се опитваме да ги... Тези, които не можеш да ги преведеш на английски, ще се опитам да ги преведа на български.
Betreuungsverein. It's the non-profit organization. Yeah. Then it's Betreuer, the legal guardian for adults, and we have Vormundschaft, what Alexander Kleasch already said. But I guess
Vormundschaft всъщност е настойничество и попечителство по нашия език. Okay.
I didn't hear you right now.
Yes, аз го преведох на български.
Okay. Okay, cool. So, as we have heard already, the main motivation behind the reform in 1992 was the abolition of the legal incapacitation for adult people. Since then, there hasn't been a clear separation between the legal guardianship for adults in German Betreuung and children. Adult clients remain now their legal competence. Their capacity to conclude contracts is not limited anymore. The legal guardian for an adult person is a person who represents the client when the client is unable to do this for himself. Now there's an extra court for the legal guardianship for adults and one for children. As Alexander Kleasch told us already, there are some principles the German Betreuungsrecht is based on. So there cannot be a legal guardianship, Betreuung, if somebody has declared his or her will about how she or he wants to be legally presented one day. We call this the lasting power of attorney. Another basic principle is that there is no spouse's representation. That means that you cannot represent your husband or wife legally just because you are married. For that, there must be a present declaration of will or a decision by court. And the restrictions for the client's rights has to be as little as possible. The court is in duty to determine whether the requirements for a Betreuung are met. The judge has to check the requirements and has to hear the client before he or she may decide that Betreuung is needed. These requirements are: A, there's a relevant illness or disability. The illness or disability must be the cause for the client's inability to take care for his or her legal issues. The proof for that has to be done by a specialist medical report, which the judge has to request. The judge then has to decide for which tasks the legal guardian can represent the client, such as, for example, financial issues, health issues, representation at offices and authorities, resident requirements, etc. It's important that the intervention is as little as possible, but enough to ensure the client's legal protection. The betreuer has to inform the court if there are any changes in the client's needs or abilities, so that the tasks might be limited or enhanced. The importance of the basic principle that the intervention by the court should be as little as possible should always be represented in the work of all institutions, such as the court, the guardian, and the guardianship authority. If the judge decided that a legal guardianship is necessary for an adult person, the judge has to determine a person who is suitable for this issue. The order of precedence must be observed here. First, there should be a volunteer support the clients if possible. Such can be a relative, a friend, or a suitable stranger. If there's no suitable volunteer, the court orders a professional legal guardian, like me, for example. Volunteers are often overwhelmed with the challenges the adult representation requires, but they can receive support by the local Betreuungsverein, such as we are. By law, it is the task of the Betreuungsverein to support voluntary guardians. So it is the state's duty to finance the work of the Betreuungsvereine. Let's go to the practice. What does it mean to work as a legal guardian for an adult person? Guardianship for adult persons is a legal service that organizes, coordinates, and supervises social services. The legal guardians never provide social help directly. The differentiation between these tasks of legal and social guardianship is very difficult in practice and hard to understand for the network often. The legal guardian represents the client's interests to the outside. The court monitors the work of the legal guardian. On the other hand, the legal guardian's work has to be orientated towards the client's wishes and ideas. Just if these wishes are unrealistic due to the illness, or would harm the client's well-being, the guardian is not required to follow these wishes. Perceptions or ideas of life of other persons or of the guardian, him or herself, what is right or wrong, are not relevant. Another basic principle of the German right is, for example, the human right of being ill and neglected. There is a decision made by the German Constitutional Court that the state and its authorities, courts or legal guardians, must not educate their citizens or treat them like children in order that they have behave like part of the societies expect what is right. I like to give you an example. One of my clients is 48 years old. Schizophrenic disease has been diagnosed more than 15 years ago. It's a chronic disease without a big chance to be cured. His physician thinks that it might be for the best if he would get an injection with psychotropic drugs once a month to control the illness. Actually, me, personally, I share this estimation and recommended the client to take the injection like the doctor proposed. But because he's an adult person, it is his decision whether he wants the injection or not. He didn't want it once and still doesn't want it. And it's his free will, and so it's okay. So he just takes pills, even with the risks that there could be mistakes with the dosage or something like that, or he might forget to take the pills. With the help of the injection, the disease might show milder course, which would be an advantage in the eyes of the outside world, such as he might be less aggressive, he might be more stable, he might be fit enough maybe to live without help of social workers. But it is his decision, his free will to refuse the injection, and it's my duty as a legal guardian to support him, talking to the doctors and to cope with consequences, such might be trouble with the police or with the care facilities he lives in. And my basic setting is that every client is able to tell his free will. My opinion is that only a specialist doctor can conclude that it's not his free will, but his natural will. So I take every client as he is and be the opinion that he can tell his free will. The point is, I as a legal guardian have to take my clients as they are and have to work with and for them. I have to defend and push through their rights. Therefore, I have to talk with my clients regularly. Of course, this interesting work is quite hard and difficult. Working with people with disabilities or psychiatric illnesses might be overwhelming and overloading for us sometimes, because the work isn't really predictable and hard to stand sometimes. The wishes of the clients are changing, and something like that is allowed. So it might be that the success has been achieved, and afterwards the clients develop completely new ideas. And it is our duty then to help our clients to remain themselves and not to become externally controlled. So you can see the effects of psychiatric disorders or disabilities and our claim to treat every client as an adult individual person with human rights are factors that make profession of legal guardians in Germany really demanding. And lots of skills in different areas of rights are needed to become a professional legal guardian in Germany. But we do not have to know everything, so it's okay if a legal guardian hires lawyers for issues that we cannot cope with. So I come to my conclusion. The implementation of self-determination for everybody is quite difficult in the reality, but the law and the Convention of the United Nations on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities are very clear here. Many citizens cannot understand the purpose of the right of self-determination, which is our everyday job. But forced treatment can be avoided if the legal guardians are able to organize a dense social network around the client. Plus, if the society can accept illness and disability as normal, forced treatment is hardly needed. So this was my input to the discussion, and we try to be open for questions now.
Много благодаря на Анти. Има въпроси от чата. Например, пита се дали хора, които са в момента в депресия, биха могли директно да се обърнат към вашето сдружение на подкрепещите. Или е необходимо човекът да страда от някаква болест постоянно?
Without being diagnosed, it might be difficult because, as I told you, the depression must be the cause for the disability of the person to act for him or herself. Mm-hmm. The judge has to consult a doctor who makes an assessment that the disease is the cause for the disability. Maybe, Mr. Clash, you can help me with the einstweilige Anordnung and how this can make a short-term decision possible without a big medical assessment, but a little medical assessment is always necessary, right? Yeah, so without diagnosis, it's quite difficult.
I understand the question in a little other way. The question is, if I would have depression and ask for help, if I could go to the Betreuungsverein. No, I don't think so. I don't know if this ever happened, but the normal way is that someone knows about the depression. For example, if I have a depression and think I need help, I can write to the court. I can go to my doctors and my doctor say I need help, and the doctor can write a letter to the court, this person need help. Also, relatives can tell that there is someone in my family who is very depressive. He does not go out, he does not eat, he needs help. And this information has to come to the court, to the psychiatric office of the community, the commune, the town of Dresden, for example. And this information, when it comes to the court, the proceedings start, as I told you before. I will have this information. The proceedings are ex officio. There is not a special notion. There's no need for a special motion, but I start the proceedings, and the first I would do is to ask Mrs. Zodehogan and her colleagues to give me a report about the situation. And Mrs. Zodehogan will tell you what she will do, and after the report, she will say there should be help, or there is no need for help, or there is other help is enough. And when there should be help, the next step is that I will ask a psychiatrist. And when this psychiatrist will give the diagnostics of depression and the help is needed, I will make the hearing. And after the hearing, he will have the guardian. When it's what Ms. Anti Исаак said, when it is very urgent, we have proceedings to make it very quickly. So in these cases, at the court, we just need a very little opinion of a psychiatrist expert. And because of this opinion, we can make the decision for a guardian for 6 months, and when this guardian should be longer as a guardian, the long proceedings will go on later.
I'm Katharina Zodehogan. I represent the Betreuungsbehörde, I will say in English, Guardianship Authority in Dresden. I want to give you a very brief overview of the Guardianship Authority's work, particularly about the history and some of our tasks. The Guardianship Authority works since 1992 in every independent town, also in every great town and county in Germany. They were linked to either social welfare offices, youth welfare offices, or health offices. In Dresden, we are a part of the social welfare office. In the beginning, the Guardianship Authority worked as guardians themselves, since there were no guardians in Germany at the time. From 92 to about 98, we looked after approximately 800 people in need of care in Dresden. From 96 onwards, we started to see an increased number of guardians, professionally and in associations. And in 2008, we stopped acting as guardians. According to the law, we can still act as guardian today, but only if we don't find another guardian. Currently, we have about 140 guardians in Dresden alone, so we will always find someone to step in. Now let me move on to the main duties of guardianship authorities today, and I will explain 3 of them a little bit more. The first, the most important, I think, is the support of the guardianship court. This takes up the largest part of our time, about 85%. Once a guardianship procedure is initiated in court, we then receive the order from the court to draw up a social report. which states whether guardianship is required, and if so, also includes a proposal for a guardian. We then organize a meeting with a person, with a concerned person or person in need of care, either in their apartment or in our office. During the conversation, it is most important to discuss the social situation. Together with the person, we also look for other possibilities for support. If we don't find another way, and the person truly needs support, in our view, we make a proposal for a guardian to the court. During this process, it is very important to observe the will of the person. If she or he doesn't want any assistance, we make note of that and forward along with any other information we receive to the court. The judge will then have to decide over the course of the procedure. Other important task of ours is the support and advice for guardians and authorized representatives. For instance, we organize meetings for exchange of experience or further education. That way, we try to stay in contact with the guardians with the aim to get to know them better, so that it is easier for us to propose them to court. We really make an effort to try finding the right guardian for each person. It is not easy and sometimes it is not possible, but we do try. And what I want to say, we have the utmost respect for the work of our guardians. The job demands a lot of knowledge, empathy, and courage. Last but not least, I want to discuss the importance of communication and networking. In my opinion, it is the basis for advancing anything in guardianship law. The cooperation between everyone, the court, the guardians, the guardianship associations, the guardianship authorities, and maybe the social psychiatric service is very important and helpful for our work. In this context, it's the guardianship authority's job to create a working group for guardianship law. In Dresden, the group has 9 members. We meet twice a year and discuss all problems that arise and any new ideas. Okay, that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you have questions, please ask.